Welcome to Grace Fellowship Baptist Church Wednesday evening Bible study for Wednesday, April 9th, 2025. We are in the book of First Chronicles. We're in chapter 18. Let's start in verse 1. In the course of time, David defeated the Philistines and subdued them, and he took Gath and its surrounding villages from the control of the Philistines. David also defeated the Moabites, and they became subject to him and brought tribute. Moreover, David fought Hadadezer, king of Zobah, as far as Hamath, when he went to establish his control along the Euphrates River. David captured 1,000 of his chariots, 7,000 charioteers, and 20,000 foot soldiers. He hamstrung all but 100 of the chariot horses. When the Arameans of Damascus came to help Hadadezer, king of Zobah, David struck down 22,000 of them. He put garrisons in the Aramean kingdom of Damascus, and the Arameans became subject to him and brought tribute. The Lord gave David victory everywhere he went. David took the gold shields carried by the officers of Hadadezer and brought them to Jerusalem. From Tebah and Kun, towns that belonged to Hadadezer, David took a great quantity of bronze, which Solomon used to make the bronze sea, the pillars, various bronze articles. When Tal, king of Hamath, heard that David had defeated the entire army of Hadadezer, king of Zobah, he sent his son Hadaram to King David to greet him and congratulate him on his victory over Hadadezer, who had been at war with Tal. Hadoram brought all kinds of articles of gold and silver and bronze. King David dedicated these articles to the Lord, as he had done with the silver and gold he had taken from these nations: Edom and Moab, the Ammonites, and the Philistines, and the Amalek. Abashi, son of Zariah, struck down 18,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt. He put garrisons in Edom, and all the Edomites became subject to David. The Lord gave David victory everywhere he went. This is essentially the same chapter 18 is as 2 Samuel chapter 8. The first 13 verses I read there are essentially the first 14 verses of chapter 8. There are some differences. It's the same story in the same order. In 2 Samuel, there is an extra few sentences, an extra verse that is counted as verse 2, and it tells about Joab lining the people of Moab up and putting a rope down, measuring off 1/3, or actually 2/3, and killing them, measuring off 1/3 and leaving them alive, and destroying 2/3 of the Moabites that way after capturing them. That's left out of this account. Then there's differences in certain proper names. In verse 7, verse 6 here in 1 Chronicles 18, which is verse 7 in 2 Samuel, the name of the two towns that all the bronze was gotten from are different. And verse 9 in 2 Samuel, verse 8 in 1 Chronicles 18, again, the name of the son of Tal, the king that sent his son, is different. Verse 12 in 1 Chronicles 18, verse 13 in 2 Samuel 8. The difference is in 1 Chronicles, Abashi, son of Zariah, is given credit for defeating Edom. In 2 Samuel, David is given credit. the place names, the proper names of the cities and the sun, there are simple explanations. These cities changed historic names in the ensuing centuries. 2 Samuel records them as the name of the cities were when David conquered them and got the bronze from them. 1 Chronicles records the names of those cities at the time it was written, and they had been renamed, and they were basically mining villages where the bronze was mined and refined and made, and so they were still known as bronze mines when the Israelites were in Babylonian captivity. And they were known, just the names had been changed, and so they were using what to them was the modern name. The name of the son of the king that came and honored David for basically destroying his enemy. The difference is in 2 Samuel, the Hebrew equivalent of his name is used, and in the 1 Chronicles account, the Armenian name equivalent. Well, the Babylonians spoke Armenian, and the Jews there had spoken Armenian, and so they're using the man's name in the language they're speaking. Samuel, it was written, and they use the Hebrew name. And so that's the difference there. The difference about who conquered Edom is just simply Abashi was the general of the army that David sent to do that. He won. In 2 Samuel, it's recording that David had ordered it to be done, and he succeeded. In 1 Chronicles here, it's giving credit to the general that actually did the fight. David was not present. He delegated it, and he did not delegate it to his main general, Joab. He delegated to Joab's brother, who is an able warrior and an able general, but they both knew that they did not need the great talents of David or Joab, and so they sent a lesser general to give him some experience, and they still succeeded. God had given them victory, and so, several centuries later, they're quite willing to give credit to David's cousin that actually succeeded, as the general of the army. Did David do it? Well, neither man did it all by himself. David was the king. He ordered the general to do it. The general took his army, and the general's army succeeded. And so the general is given credit. Does that mean David didn't deserve credit? No, he's king, and he deserves credit just as much as Abashi does. Let's face it, every man in that army deserves credit. So, it's a matter of viewpoint. 2 Samuel was written very shortly after David's reign, or during David's reign, and they wanted to make sure David was credited with winning, because they were telling the narrative of all of David's victories. Several centuries later, they're unconcerned with showing that David was a great warrior. His reputation has built through the centuries. He was that great warrior, and they're quite willing to look back in the record, the court record, and give credit to the general that succeeded. And let's face it, he was part of the royal family. So, that David sent him and he succeeded is just credit. David still is in charge. It doesn't affect his reputation. The other thing that was different, in 2 Samuel, it pointed out that David acquired a great deal of bronze that was used for the temple. It may have been written before the temple actually got built. It was all the bronze was being stockpiled for it, and it was dedicated to it. And if the temple had been built by the time 2 Samuel got written, it wasn't important how it was used, but that it was used for the temple. In Chronicles here, it points out that Solomon used it to build the temple. They're trying to establish that the temple was holy. It was set up by Solomon, but David had been making plans, and this is where he got some of the materials it took to build the temple. And so they're giving credit that David acquired the bronze, but Solomon used it to make, and they list some of what he made out of it, the pillars and the bronze sea and bronze articles and stuff. In 2 Samuel, it just simply says it was used in the construction of the temple. So the perspective is just a little different. Centuries later, they're trying to tie the threads together and make it obvious when you read it that David acquired the bronze, Solomon used it to make the parts of the temple that had been done. And let's face it, when 1 Chronicles is being written, the temple is no more. The Babylonians have destroyed it. They're trying to record what did it take to make the temple, so that when they finally get back into Israel, into the promised land, they can rebuild the temple. And they're trying to point out that it was God's temple, that the righteous king had acquired the goods. His son that was promised to build it had used those goods to build the temple. And 2 Samuel is only trying to record what David did, and that he prepared for the construction of the temple is basically the big point. So minor differences in how the tale's told, but nothing significant. Verse 14. David reigned over all Israel, doing what was just and right for all his people. Joab, son of Zeruiah, was over the army. Jehoshaphat, son of Ahitub, and Ahimelech, son of Bithiar, were priests. Shavshah was secretary. Benaniah, son of Jehoiada, was over the Kerethites and Pelethites, and David's sons were chief officials at the king's side. This is essentially the same thing that is said in 2 Samuel 8, verses 16 through 18. There is only one word difference. The name of the secretary in 2 Samuel is Sariah. why did they change the name from Sariah to Shavsha? Well, the thing is, they were not speaking Hebrew. They were speaking Armenian. And Sariah is a Hebrew name. All the other names could be pronounced and transliterated into Armenian, but Sariah was not a name that could be translated into Armenian. They had a name that they used for it, and it was Shavsha. So they used the Armenian name because that's the language they actually spoke. And so all the other names got recorded just the same way. Of course, in the verses above, we looked at that also. So, this is recording how David was a great warrior and how he reigned Israel justly and rightly, and who his officials were. And this is the first set of the list of officials, and it's the same officials. The only thing they've done is change the name to a name they can pronounce. This chapter is essentially 2 Samuel chapter 8. The small differences have to do with the language that they speak and the history of time and how they view it centuries later from the Babylonian captivity. They're still telling that David started it and that he had peace on every side because he defeated everybody, and they give God credit for defeating all the surrounding countries. Yeah, David was a great warrior, but it's not David that won. It's God that won, and God used David to do so. And likewise, when Abashi, son of Zeruiah, is given credit, it's again God that did it. Abashi was the general that led the army. It's God that gave the victory. So, this is same tale. There's slight emphasis different on how the temple was built and how the materials were used. And there were some naming differences because of centuries and a language change. But, same tale. Holy Father, you made the country safe so that, under David, so that they could build the temple in the next generation under Solomon. And Solomon did not have to go out and fight wars because he ruled over a vast empire and nobody dared to attack him. So he had the peace that it took to build the temple and then build his palace and build Jerusalem up into a mighty city with mighty walls that protected a large area. David had basically a castle for a city that he took from the Jebusites. Solomon had a city of dozens of square miles within a wall because you gave him peace on every side, because David, his father, had obeyed you and been a man after your own heart, and you used David as that mighty warrior to protect your people. Lord, thank you for fulfilling your promise. There are other promises that we see in Scripture that look like they're not yet fulfilled. And we look forward to the day when you fulfill them all, like you fulfilled the promises about giving the Israelites peace on every side, that you would give David his son on the throne, and that man would build the temple. And Solomon did. You are a God that knows the future, and you predict it accurately, and you make it happen the way you said, even if we don't understand. Lord, I look forward to how you send Jesus back to reign here on earth as Lord of Lords and King of Kings, and set up a just and righteous kingdom like David did, that will have peace and righteousness and justice over the whole world. Some of the details are hazy to me, Lord, because I can interpret them one way or another way. But yet, Lord, I still see it looks like you are doing those things today that is said would be the things you would do before he returns. Lord, I trust you no matter what pain we go through in this life. Have us to lift you up. Have us to honor you. Have us to obey you so that you could draw all men to yourself. In your holy name, amen. I am your host, Frank Reich, Associate Pastor of Family and Ministry at Grace Fellowship Baptist Church, and this has been the Wednesday evening Bible study for Wednesday, April 9th, 2025. This was recorded on April 5th, 2025, and I've had an improvement in tech. Hopefully this week it uploads tonight instead of it taking me a few days to upload it. I apologize for that last week. It got out on Tuesday before the Wednesday Bible study. So some of y'all may have had problems getting to it. I am looking forward to the Palm Sunday service, which is a week from tomorrow. And I am looking forward to the Good Friday service, which is 2 weeks from yesterday. And I'm looking forward to the Easter service, which will be 2 weeks from tomorrow. Had rehearsal this morning with choir, and we did a first run through of all the narration and stuff, and I love how this is going together. I think God is doing a great thing through the choir, and I want y'all to invite anybody and everybody you can to come to hear the Palm Sunday service, to hear the Good Friday service, and particularly to hear the Easter service. The message that is being delivered is very biblical. It's touching, and I think people need to hear it. I hope to see you tomorrow at worship and Sunday school. I hope to see you Wednesday night at the Bible study. If nothing else, we'll see you here on YouTube. Have a blessed week.